Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the NUFC360 podcast with me, Jack Cunningham. I've got a very esteemed guest with me, Sky Sports North East reporter, Keith Downie.
Hi Jack, you alright?
Keith, how are you doing? Are you looking forward to the new season?
I'm looking forward to the transfer window closing. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the new season. 2 days away? Yeah, really looking forward to it. Weather looks good at the weekend. Newcastle at home first day. Got a few, my actual nephew's been asking to go for a Newcastle game for a long, long time. He's coming down to his first game this weekend. So, it's been a long summer with the Euros. Didn't particularly enjoy the Euros, I have to say. I feel like we need Premier League football back when the goals are flying in and whatnot. There's so many great games last season.
Yeah.
And look, I think Newcastle are in a strong position with their squad. I know they've not made many additions, but I always feel the teams who have kept the bulk of the squad together and they all know each other tend to do well going into the next season. I feel the ones who make multiple changes and they're trying to get to know each other always get off to a slow start. So I actually think it's maybe a bit of a strength in Newcastle haven't signed too many. Yes, of course you still want to get a couple more in, and yeah. I'm sure we'll get onto that. But I actually think Newcastle, if they keep everyone fit with the squad that you have and the starting 11 you have, you've got one of the strongest starting 11s in the league. But the big question is keeping the players fit. And as we saw last season, that's easier said than done. So to answer your question, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, really looking forward to it. And I think even more being in here.
Yeah, I know it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it was great to experience it last weekend. And I popped my head in on Sunday to have a look as well. And it was rammed on Sunday and it wasn't even a game on. So looking forward to as much as you guys are. And can't wait for the action to kick off.
Definitely, and I think obviously we won't touch on the Euros too much, but Scotland, I can imagine, wasn't the greatest summer for you. Yeah. But let's look at the transfer window, because as unfortunately that is what everyone wants to talk about.
Sorry, you've just taken my mind back to that Hungary game there and how I felt when Steve Clarke finally pushed for a goal with 7 minutes to go of the tournament. I was so angry after that game. I've just managed to calm down, but thanks for taking me back there.
Apologies. No, if we look at the transfer window, so I mean, Newcastle, as you said, haven't made too many additions. How would you judge the window so far from a Newcastle point of view?
Frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys will agree with that. Look, I don't think they've got a huge budget. And if you are to get Mark Gahey, and look, as we sit here just now on Thursday morning, that deal is still alive. Newcastle are still trying to get him. If you get him, I think suddenly the window looks a lot better.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to improve in the right wing position, but I wouldn't be surprised now if Miggy stays around until January and then they maybe perhaps look to make a change there at that point. Look, I think they will try and get someone in, and I certainly wouldn't rule it out. But I just think it feels to me like either everything was going to be thrown at a right winger or everything was going to be thrown at a centre half. I don't think Eddie wanted to bring in two decent players. I think he wanted to bring in one quality player in one of the positions. And if you get Mark Gahey, I think it makes it difficult to bring in a winger unless you sell a Miggy or you sell a Trippier, and that's proven a little bit harder than I think what many thought it would be. So, look, I think Lloyd Kelly's solid signing. He can play left back, centre back. Mm-hmm. I think he might start the season at left back, if I'm honest. I think it'll be between him and Lewis Hall. I think Lewis Hall will probably start on Saturday against Southampton. I think if it's an away game against Chelsea or Man City, I think you might see Kelly at left back. Yeah. Just because I think he's a bit better defensively as Hall's trying to learn the position. Who else? Osula's come in. Look, he's clearly there to be legs off the bench. I think he's the kind of guy you'll see come on for the last 5 minutes of games just to try and stretch teams. If you're losing, if you're winning, whatever the situation is. Who else did they say? The goalkeeper came from Vlachodimos came from Nottingham Forest. Look, my understanding of that is he's just part of the deal. Yeah. And I don't think he's coming in to be any competition. Still got Dubravka there, and I wouldn't be surprised if either Dubravka or Ruddy plays ahead of him. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out on loan. So not much has happened. It has been frustrating, but if you get Mark Gahey and then manage to bring in a right winger and sell either an Almiron or a Trippier to fund that, suddenly the window looks a bit better.
Yeah, I think you're overall. So you mentioned like the tight budget for Newcastle. I think if you look at the Premier League as a whole, there's like a lot of teams, far few, are on relatively tight budgets. Do you think this is directly because of PSR or the other factors at play?
No, it's PSR. Yeah, it's absolutely changed the face of it hugely. I've just been on a long call there in the car before I came to speak to you guys about a few things that are going on at other clubs, and it's crazy out there at the moment, and I think they're going to have to change it soon. And I think it's just unfair for you guys that you've waited all this time for owners who actually want to spend money. You've got them and you can't spend their money, and it's frustrating. But I think what you need to look at, and I think this is what a lot of people forget, And I tell people, some of the people, colleagues down in London, this is that Newcastle have spent nearly £500 million since the takeover. You've not sold anyone. Other than Anderson and Mint at the end of June for 60, you've not sold anyone.
So Maximan's only one.
So
I really think.
Sorry, yes. So Maxim, you got, what did you get, 20, 25 for him?
Yeah.
And then Chris Wood went for 15, but you bought him for 25, so
Exactly.
that was a loss. So you've not traded well enough, and that's because you were left with a squad by Mike Ashley that wasn't worth anything. There was no assets there, and everyone knows that. But you've spent a lot. You have spent a lot of money. I mean, when you think back now, yeah, Isak's a quality player, but 63 million is a lot of money. If you get Gehi, 65 million is a club transfer record, huge amount of money. You look at Tonali was a lot of money. Botman, you list them all, huge sums of money. Now I know there's a lot of Newcastle fans saying, yeah, but what is the situation Man United after what Jim White had said there? I don't know the ins and outs of that. Maybe we will further down the line. But when you look at Chelsea, you look at Man City, you look at Liverpool, they're all selling as well.
Yeah.
Newcastle haven't been selling. Ally to that, the fact that Newcastle's commercial revenue is dwarfed by these clubs. What was it last year? You brought in 250, 260 million. Manchester City were nearly 4 times that. So, you know, when you take that into consideration, you combine that with the fact you've not traded, that's why Newcastle are in this position. Yes, I do think you have money to spend this transfer window. I think it's probably somewhere between the money we're talking about for Gehi and 100 million. I don't think it's much more than that.
Yeah.
And also, what you don't want to do is throw everything at it now and then leave yourself nothing in January.
Yeah.
So
No,
you need to box clever.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. I think selling has definitely been a thing that Newcastle have not done well at all. If I think back to that 1st January after the takeover, Newcastle spent a lot of money to even just stay up. And, you know, Skimmerreich came in, Byrne came in, etc. Wood came in. And then and then that's kind of put Newcastle in potentially this PSR hole because of the fact that they've not been able to sell anyone. But then if you look at what we're going to do in the rest of the window, what are you expecting by the end of the transfer window Newcastle have done?
I don't think a lot. I think two at most. And I don't think it's any secret. I think it's a right winger and a centre half. I think centre half's a priority, and I think a lot of that is due to the amount of goals that were leaked towards the end of the season. Yes, I know a lot of people will point the finger at Martin Dubravka and feel the difference between him and goals compared to Nick Pope. I think that probably did contribute to some of it because Nick Pope's a safer pair of hands, and you know, I just felt that it looked like the defence were more comfortable with Pope there. But yeah, I can't let the rest of the defenders off with that. And there was a lot of goals conceded last season, particularly towards the end of the season. And that is why I think the priority has been decided to bring in a quality centre half, hence the pursuit of Mark Gehi. I think if that gets done, I think they will look to bring in a right winger. But I think a lot of that is dependent on a departure.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you manage to get some money in for Trippier or Almiron or both of them, I think you can then go at it. Look, I'm not saying that there isn't money to spend without selling those guys, but it feels to me, the bits and pieces I'm hearing, that to then go and spend another 30 or 40 on a winger, I don't know if it's there without bringing more money in, because I think they need to leave money back for January and for next year as well. And what they don't want to do is put them in a position next June or in 3 years' time what they were in a couple of months ago. So I think they really need to be clever. And then people will say, I've just had a conversation with my colleague on the phone outside. You know, I'm saying being clever. Why are they spending £65 million on Gehi? Why not spend 40 million on Matthias de Ligt and get someone like that? But it's clear to me that Eddie Howe wants to bring in a defender who can go straight into the team, who knows the Premier League, who can hit the ground running, and doesn't take 3-4 months to find their feet in the league. And we've seen that with some of the new signings that have come from abroad. I think you can even say that to Isak to an extent.
Yeah.
Bruno was like that. We've seen what's happened with Tonali. I think he wants the tried and tested to come into the squad right now, and that's why he's going for a Mark Gehi. And look, it has worked in most of the English-based players they've signed so far. So to answer your question, you could be sat here and have not signed either of them, but I'd be pretty confident you'll get centre half in.
Yeah.
I still got a belief that Mark Gehi will happen. I think Palace are trying to extract everything they can out of Newcastle, every penny that they can. I'm aware that Newcastle are already looking at other targets, but they're still hopeful of getting a deal done. And normally when it gets to this stage in a transfer, it usually gets done. We've seen a couple of deals this summer get close and not happen. Zubimendi to Liverpool from Sociedad, was surprised that fell through. Look at the Conor Gallagher situation. There's some weird things happening out there really is. But I just feel with this Gehi situation, it's got so far down the line now that I feel Newcastle are probably going to have to press the button with it. And then the ramification will be they probably can't bring in a winger unless they sell someone, but they'll cross that bridge when they come to it.
So obviously you've spoke to Eddie Howe across this summer,
Yeah.
so obviously you spoke to him in Germany. What feeling are you getting from him regards the transfer window? Is it frustration? Is it he's patient? How's he feeling about it, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's a completely different dynamic at the club. For
Yeah.
the last 3 windows, he's been hands-on, he's been dealing with it alongside Amanda Staveley and Darren Eels as well, but he's kind of getting left to get on with the coaching situation now since Paul Mitchell's come in. So I don't think he's party to everything that's going on. Look, I think he makes it clear to the sporting director who he wants, and the sporting director is aware, and then it's up to him to go and try and deliver the players. Now, it's not really worked so far. Osula's come in, but the guy he think's not happened yet. As I say, I'm still of the belief that there's a good chance it'll happen. But look, I think he'll be just as frustrated as you guys, because he'll want a squad in early. He would have wanted the new players in to travel to Germany, to travel to Tokyo. He's not had that, and it's not an ideal situation, but it's still better to get them in at some point. And look, you look at Mark Gehey, he got an extended time off anyway, so he couldn't have travelled to Germany or Tokyo. But I think he'd be frustrated. Any manager just wants their players in as soon as they can. But if you look at the window, it's pretty quiet everywhere, really. And I think a lot of managers will be in a similar situation. I think a lot of them will be frustrated with the situation, and they just need to trust the process and just hope they get there in the end. It just means that most teams are going to start the season with similar teams to what we saw last season. You're not going to, back in the day when you're all you've got 5-6 new signings.
Everyone's really excited to see all their new signings.
And without doubt, there's teething problems behind the scenes. We heard what Eddie Howe had to say out in Germany, and he's kind of alluded to a couple of times since that he's not dealing, and he doesn't want to deal with the ins and outs of it all. Should he probably be aware a bit more of what's going on from the outside looking in at the moment? Maybe yes, but I do think over time that they should sort those situations out. It's just a shame for them that they're learning about each other and trying to work through it within a transfer window. It would have been better for them if this was like in February, March, April, so that they could go into the transfer window all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit at the moment that they're still trying to find each other out, all these new guys working together who haven't worked together before.
Of course. Touching a bit more about sort of your role covering this pretty insane club.
Yeah.
What are your highlights and lowlights of covering Newcastle?
I mean, highlight, without doubt, obvious question, you'll know my answer, was a takeover going through. I mean, it was just it was a crazy day, that, and you sometimes have to pinch yourself and say that actually really happened. Now, as I've made clear to everyone over the years, I'm not a Newcastle United fan. I grew up supporting Hearts in Scotland. Now, I'm a Hearts fan, but because I'm so embroiled in everything going on down here, sometimes on a Monday morning I'm having to check my live score, and I'm like, what was the Hearts score at the weekend?
Yeah.
Because you get so embroiled in everything here. So I am a Hearts fan, not a Newcastle fan, but I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the club. It was the closest club to Edinburgh, and we'd quite often go down to games when we were kids in my early 20s or my teens to come down and watch Newcastle. Same with Sunderland, went to a couple of Sunderland games as well. One of my mates actually played for it, so come down and watch that. And yeah, that day when the takeover went through, I mean, it's well documented. I got a bit emotional, and it was weird. It was when I read the statement out, and bearing in mind I'd read it out about 20 times on my phone because I'd had it about an hour in advance. I knew it was done. But I needed to wait for the thumbs up to the Premier League, Newcastle and Newcastle and the new owners had to all okay. And I was like sitting reading, I couldn't tell anyone, I didn't tell my cameraman, and I was like, so by the time I read it out on air, I just felt this wave of adrenaline like almost leave my body, like pressure, like after 3 or 4 years of talking about it, and get yourself stressed because I became collateral damage in it as well, because you get abuse if it's not gone through, and you're bringing the news to people, so people are pissed off for you. And it was just this wave of, and that's why I just was like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry here. I was like, what this is, and I also, because I knew that what I was saying, I was well aware it meant so much to so many people, and it was going to change a lot of people's lives. The Premier League statement, which we've been waiting for all day long, has just landed in my inbox in the last minute. I'll read it to you, and I'll read every word of it. It says, the Premier League, Newcastle United Football Club and St James's Holdings Limited, of course that's Mike Ashley's company, have today settled the dispute over the takeover of the club by the consortium of PIF, PCP Capital Partners and the Reuben Brothers Sports and Media Company. Following the completion of the Premier League's owners and directors test, the club has been sold to the consortium with immediate effect. People come up to me in the street and say, oh my God, like when the takeover went through, thank you. I'm like, well, firstly, why are you saying thank you? Because I didn't buy the football club. I was just telling you what happened. But secondly, they say they go, "Oh, it's changed my life," and I'm like, "Wow!" I knew it was going to make a difference, but I didn't realize people would say, "I've got my life back again," and you're like, "Wow, these people live and breathe the football club," and obviously I realised that to an extent there, and that's where the emotion came from. So that was the best day. Loved it. Loved all that kind of few weeks round about it. It was pretty crazy. Other than that, it's kind of just been like, I love transfers and doing that kind of stuff, but I have to say, under the sort of Mike Ashley regime, it was just, if you got a good transfer, it was almost keeping the wolves at bay. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is great, this is what I'm here for. And then, of course, the Champions League games last season was amazing. That day out in Germany was phenomenal, in that town square and building up to the game. Just loved it. Loved all the games, loved being part of it, and it harked me back to my days when I used to cover Celtic and Rangers in Scotland, because I was away all the time.
Yeah.
And I missed all that. For the first 9-10 years of this job, I was like, maybe got 3 days in Dublin with Rafa Benitez if you were lucky. So it was amazing being back in these trips again in the American tour last summer. Sadly, I didn't get to Tokyo this summer, which I'm disappointed about, but I had like personal reasons for not going. And all that was last year was amazing, absolutely amazing. The 9 years before that, I don't really think there's too much worth talking about here.
That's fair enough, yeah. So I suppose looking at it from your point of view, what has changed in terms of covering Newcastle as the media? Because we all know what's changed for the fans, we all know what's changed for all the players, but like in terms of facilities, access to players, maybe the way the club communicates, what sort of changed in that way?
The first thing I want to say to this is, when the club, it's very similar for me as it is for you guys as fans. When the club's doing well and things are great and you're getting to cup final, I forgot about that. The cup final was great as well. There you go. So many good things happened last year I forgot about. The cup final was brilliant until the match kicked off. That was a bit like the Scotland-Hungary game as well, actually.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? Actually, the build-up to the cup final at Wembley was probably better actually than the town square in Germany. Just that emotion and people just loving being back, and you're like, wow, Newcastle are back.
Yeah.
What was your question?
Yeah, just about like in terms of how it's changed for the media. So like access to facilities, different facilities, access to players, how they club communicate.
Yeah, sorry, I quite often go off in tangents.
It's all right.
There's a lot going on up there at the moment. So for me, as a reporter covering the club, it's the same for you guys as fans. When the club are doing well, I enjoy my job more. Yeah. When you're signing players and you're trying to get in the Champions League and you're getting to cup finals, I'm getting experiences and I'm getting to go places and people are walking about with smiles on your face. That's what I want to work on. I don't want to stand there and say the club's going to administration or the club's been relegated or you've just sold your best player for a tin of beans. I don't want to be doing that. And people when things aren't going well, like with the Mark Gehry stuff just now, I've noticed I'm getting quite a lot of stick on social media because we're putting out, I think Sky had an interview with Mark Gehry yesterday.
They did, yeah.
His answer wasn't great, but it was the only thing we were told he would talk on. It was the only thing we were told. And that's not me. I want you to get the sign in and I want you to be challenging at the top of the table. So that's the first thing I want to say. In terms of a day-to-day thing, look, it was hard under Mike Ashley because everything was kept close, but just sort of trying to be quite honest about it. We were one of the few people that actually Mike Ashley spoke to, so we used to get quite a lot of the information. We were the only ones to get it, so in a kind of perverse way, in some ways it was good because we knew we were always getting it first, and it was great. And a lot of it was bad news, but we were getting it. So as a journalist, it was good. You were getting the information, and we were getting some exclusive. Now, there's so many other journalists covering the club, and guys on YouTube, and guys like yourself. So there's all these different people now want a piece of the action. Right. There's so much more competition now. So that makes it harder, but the competition is good. And I like it. It's good that everyone... And for me now, since the takeover's gone through, my profile's without doubt raised, and that's nice that you now feel part of the story. On a day-to-day basis with the club, I wouldn't say it's changed that much. There's still a lot of the staff that were there pre-takeover in the media department and the communications, and I'd like to think myself and others at Sky have got a good relationship with these guys. That's fine. In terms of access, the access has pretty much remained. We got to go to America last summer, got invited to Tokyo this year. We would have got invited previously on those trips, it's just that they never went on them. That was all it was. It wasn't that we weren't allowed. I think when Newcastle went to New Zealand 9-10 years ago, we got invited, but we just didn't go to New Zealand. There wasn't, from my desk in London, there wasn't an appetite for Newcastle because they were struggling to exist. Where now they're trying to get the Champions League, there's a much more bigger appetite from London to have Newcastle stories on, because they can see how much you guys are loving it, how much you guys are engaged with it all, so they want to cover it as well. So it all kind of transcends together. So yeah, day-to-day basis hasn't really changed that much, other than I'm reporting on positive stuff rather than negative stuff.
Yeah.
People have got a smile on their face compared to hating their life.
Yeah. Obviously, you're from Scotland originally, as I said, Hearts fan. North East now has been your home for many years. I mean, how does it feel like home, a second home?
Yeah. Well, it'll be 11 years next month I moved here. It's funny because on Sunday I was with my partner. She's pregnant just now, due the baby actually. The baby's due on transfer deadline day, would you believe? So if you don't sign anyone else, I'm going to turn up with this baby and say we've got a new arrival.
Yeah,
right?
that'd be good.
So that's just typical of me, that the baby's due on deadline day, like your busiest day of the year. Or not.
Or not, yeah.
And we were in town and we took a little wander around, and I was down the quayside. And when I first moved here, I lived in a flat in the quayside. I told her for like the 10,000th time, so I didn't know her at that point. I was like, that was, I told you I've had a flat there. I just overlooked. She said, yeah, she told me a million times. And I was really had all these memories flooding back of how I felt back then, and just like flashbacks of what the club was run back, and little stories popping into my head about, or I remember I got in trouble for putting that out there, or I did this, or like one popped in my head about when they said the Newcastle and Andros Townsend. And
yeah.
I did an interview with him the night before he came for his medical in the club of raid, and it weirdly popped in my head as I was walking past the old flat. And yeah, it seems like a long time ago. So much has changed since there. But look, this is my home now. When I go back up to Edinburgh, look, I realise Edinburgh's more beautiful than when I lived there, because I probably took it for granted. And I get off the train now and I'm like, wow, look at the castle, look at the... But it feels like I'm visiting. And when I get back in the car or on the train and come back down to Newcastle, I'm like, oh, I'm coming home again. And I think that happens naturally, and my partner's from here. Most of my friends are down here. And then obviously once the baby arrives, she's going to be a Geordie, isn't she?
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. Well, Geordie, no, North Tyneside Hospital. Yeah, that's
Geordie. Yeah.
So North East. Should be from the North East. I don't want to upset any more Sunderland fans than already have.
Exactly. To be fair, you mentioned how the extra competition's coming in from like other places like YouTube and stuff. So I was wondering, as a reporter who has genuine contacts and stuff, what sort of impact have like in the nose had on your job?
Yeah. I mean, this week there's been quite a lot of that going on, and look, it is frustrating. I don't mind people trying to find information. I don't mind people putting it out there, but when you kind of find out, or you're told where the information's come from, and I'm obviously going to say, but you hear that, you're like, that's not really information. That's not really. I think there's a lot of people trying to be journalists, but they've got no idea, not one iota, of what it takes to get a story out there, a story to air. They've no idea, and they think maybe just word of mouth of someone in the pub or knowing someone that knows someone means that that's true. I mean, if I put everything like that out that I heard, we would be sat here all day putting stuff out. I think there needs to be more of a process where you trust the information, and I think with a lot of these guys, there's a desperation to be first, that they'll maybe take an educated guess or a chance on things just to be first. But then, and I'm sure they'll admit it themselves, they know that they can be wrong a few times and get away with it, where someone like me or any of my colleagues who cover the club, we're wrong for a big one once, and that'll always be remembered.
Yes.
It is a bit frustrating because it causes me problems. Like that Mark Getty one last week, that the second bid hadn't gone in, and it was someone putting it out because they knew it probably would go in, and they were like, well, I can just take this educated guess, knowing that, and then they'll be like, oh, I got that first. And that's frustrating for me, because then I get loads of calls and texts and messages saying, Keith, it's out here that, and I'm like, yeah, no, but like, and that's why I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was like, look, who said it? Like, is it someone that I know that's got good contacts either at the club or with the players' camp or with Crystal Palace? No is the answer, and that's, I think with social media now, everyone's a reporter, and I think a lot of the people now, not most, but some of the people reading it now online on Twitter or X, should I say, or on YouTube, they kind of the lines are being blurred between the two, and they maybe don't understand that.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for me that these people do then believe that, and then it'll be, oh no, but I read that was done. Yeah, no, but where did you? They just look to the source and look. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But that's social media for you, and I think we're all just going to have to get used to that. Look, I'm not digging these guys out because it's good that they're interested, it's good that they're keen, and it's good that they want to find. And I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of the guys in question this week, and hopefully understand it a little bit more from our points of view. Who, I've worked so hard. I've covered this club for 11 years, trying to get to know people, trying to get contacts, trying people to trust me, for then someone to come in who's not been doing it for any time at all to like usurp you with information that isn't watertight is frustrating.
Yeah.
It is frustrating.
Okay.
But look,
No,
it's not the end of the world.
No, exactly. Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about one final question.
Yeah.
How are Newcastle going to do this season?
Yeah.
Predicted finish. How all on the line.
Oh God! Well, do you know what I've said to a few people now that if Newcastle keep the 11th, not the 11, but not the 11, because you're always going to be injuries. But if you can keep your injuries to a minimum, if you can keep your injuries to maybe 3 at a time,
And maybe like
rather
fringe players rather than
but
necessarily.
even like say you're missing Botman, Tonali, and Barnes.
Yeah.
Right. You still got a really good starting 11, right? If you miss them for a few weeks, and then they come back, and you're missing. If Gehi's here, you're missing Gehi, Bruno, Bruno Tonali, and then Almiron. Like, I think as long as you're only missing 3 or 4, you've got a strong team there. As long as you're not missing 10 or 11, which is what obviously we saw last season, I think you'll go well. I honestly think you'll be up challenging again in the top 4. I'm not saying you'll definitely get the top 4, but I mean, I would be amazed if you don't get Europe this season. Whether that's in the shape of the Europa League. Sorry, I'm getting a call there about doing a live soon. So this is my life, right? That's actually the phone 3 times since I've been out. I wonder if that means I've transferred something. No, they'll be up phoning to ask me. I'll be amazed if you don't get to Europe. I think you'll be pushing top 4. If you get a catalogue of injuries again, then it's going to be too difficult for you. But I just think playing every weekend, not having to worry about European football during the week, I think you'll go well. Would love to see you win a trophy. I would rather see you win a trophy than get 4th. Honestly,
I think most fans should be like that.
I think you need that. The draw wasn't kind last night. Nottingham Forest away.
Not really,
I think
no.
that's pretty much as difficult as you could have got. I think given the options there, you were hoping that you were going to get like a League 2 team at home on the back of what happened last season, but your bad luck continues. Look, let's hope for a good season. It's hard to predict a cup win, but I do think you'll be up there or thereabouts because I think you've got a settled squad if you avoid the injuries. If you bring in Mark Gehi and one other, you've got a strong team there. You've got one of the strongest teams in the division, and I think there's a lot to be said for continuity, and I think you've got continuity there within the squad. So I expect you to be up there, top 4, top 5, 6th at worst. I don't know if that's what you want to hear. I don't know how you feel, but I feel you've got everything there for a good season.
Brilliant. Keith, thank you very much for joining us on the NUFC360 podcast. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.